Christian parenting.
This is Chrys and Shellie, and you're listening to Rocking It Grand.
Join us each week as we talk about leading the next generation with faith, purpose, and vision.
Hey folks, welcome back to Rocking It Grand, where we like to toss out a topic and just address it from every situation and angle that we can. And today, Chrys, we want to talk about manners. Even as we say that word, I'm aware that people can, manners can sound like an old-fashioned word.
It can.
But it's not.
Yeah.
And
No.
I believe our audience would understand, and those listening would immediately agree that we need manners desperately
when you
in our
think about
society
it,
today.
seriously, there was a time when people went to manners classes.
And we don't anymore, and we need to,
don't.
because good
Yes.
manners are timeless,
Yes.
ageless. We need good manners. They grease
Absolutely.
the wheels of social interaction. So you brought us today, I noticed a few quotes that you have pulled together about good manners, and I think they're worth reading.
Well, first of all, I found this, what kind of led me to going down this road was I found this, I don't even know, he's a strategic coach, life coach, I guess. His name is apparently Dan Sullivan. But I loved what he said. He said that the first thing he teaches people, we talked about life skills a few weeks ago in our podcast because we do believe life skills are so important to life.
So manners are more life skills.
That's why they're calling them life skills. And when he was asked what are the critical habits that someone should have to be what he calls referable. He said referable is the best skill you can have as a working adult. And I love that because as a camp director, I have so many times been asked to do a reference for college kids going on to their next phase of life. And it's difficult when I have a child who's come through my camp program who is not referable. There's things about that person that he or she, they don't have the skills I think are necessary to carry on another job. But the things that he says that are critical habits, number one, show up on time. Love that. Number two, do what you say.
So good.
Number three, finish what you start. And number four is what I think our topic is about today. Say please and thank you. And that sounds like such a simple thing, but it's hugely important in the scheme of life skills and being able to be an influence on other people.
It occurs to me that he is teaching these in a strategic coaching class, a
Right.
marketing class. And so that underscores what we're saying, that this is not
Exactly.
just something we need to teach our kids and grandkids. These are skills, these manners are what we all need.
And it's a little bit scary that that's even on the list, that it's not a given, but it's on the list probably because he's met so many people who
it's
don't do that.
necessary.
For us now with our babies and our family, our 2-year-old and our 15-month-old, it's a constant please and thank you. You hand them something, they hand them back, you say
And you
thank
say,
you.
yeah, it's that repetition.
And you teach them, it's just
layer by layer.
over and over. And I don't know if that's us Southern moms or what, but we are diligent about teaching those manners because we do believe that good manners presents to the world that you care about them, that you're respectful of them. So I came across some quotes that other people say about manners
Okay.
that I think are significant.
This first one says good manners, and it's really how we have opened this podcast, are ageless, timeless, classless, and priceless. They're about treating people and ourselves with respect, putting them at ease, and respecting the views of others. So long as humans walk this planet, we will all need to use good manners.
I love that because it's not giving us a time out on this. We have to do it. This next quote says, manners may be old-fashioned, and they may be a bit tedious at times. And that's what I'm talking about with our little babies. It's a constant reminder. You have to do it over and over again for it to become a part of your life. But we need to stick to this aspect as our roots as Americans. And I love that this person believes that manners is a root in our American culture. I
And we're
love
always
that.
talking about the erosion of our public discourse, and with
Mhm.
the rolling ball of so many tensions in our nation. Teaching these good manners and stressing them again is just one more way where we can regain some of that
Exactly.
civility that we've lost.
Exactly. This quote goes on to say, "We are losing a connection with each other that brings us together in small yet effective ways." So, this is a small way, but I find for myself, even as a former teacher, camp director, when I have a child or a student who uses good manners to me, that's an
Mhm.
immediate connection. Like, okay, this kid, I like this kid. At least I like his parents,
Mhm.
her parents, because somebody's been
You
teaching
know
that.
how they're being raised.
This
I'm
one goes on
thinking
to say,
about wait, first I wanted to tell you
yeah, go
when you
ahead.
say it may be tedious at times, and I think that's so important that it has to be that repetition and that upon layer, line upon line. I remember once with my grandson, Grant Thomas, I was in Houston with him, and now a lot of people I realize do not require their children to say yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am. We do
Right.
in the South. That's
Yes.
that's what we do. We like that form of address.
Right.
Well, Grant had lost his ma'am, and he was not saying yes, ma'am. We had the most fun that day. We sat down with some paper, and we created a little children's book. He was really into drawing at the time, and in the children's book, it was a grandparent and her grandchild, and they were looking for the yes, ma'am. The little boy had lost his yes, ma'am. So we just made up this whole story
How
about this little
fun.
boy losing his yes, ma'am. We went to the park and we looked for it, and as I would tell the story, he was drawing it. He'd draw the grandmama and the little boy at the park. And we looked for his yes, ma'am in his room, and we looked in all these places. And then at the end of this little book, and I'm thinking as I say this out loud, it really needs to be in book form. But
Yes, I like it. Yes.
you'll really like how it wrapped, because at the end of the story, and he's had fun, illustrating it. And at the end of it, the grandmother says to the little boy, "Well, I guess we're just not going to find it. Do you want to go home?" And the little boy said, "Yes, ma'am." And then the grandmother he drew another picture with both of them with a look of surprise. And they were like, "It was in your mouth the whole
Oh,
time that we've been looking for it." And he has never forgotten that story. I can be
okay.
out there
I
to
love
this
that.
day. And if someone says, "Yes, ma'am," he gets tickled because he's
I
like, it's
love
in
that.
your mouth the whole time.
That is so good. I love it. That kind of reminds me of several years ago, I got curious about how we got some of our games because the camp I direct, I'm always in charge of activities and games and that kind of thing. And I really believe it was a very wise, smart mama like you who thought of games like Mother May I, because that was, we
It
played
was
that when we were
teaching.
little, and how that works if you don't remember or you didn't play this. You have a leader in the front, and the children in the line have a request. No, the mom has a request, or the leader has a request, says, take 10 steps forward. And the child has to say, Mother, may I,
Before they
before
move.
they can move.
That's
And so
good.
I really, truly believe it was a mother who was trying to think of a game to help hone the skills of her
I think you're
children.
right. I think
Don't
you're
you
on to
think?
something. I
Yeah.
think you're on to
Yeah, for
something.
sure. All right.
This
What's the next quote
so
say?
this next quote that I wanted to move to says, and this is good. Today, folks talk a lot about being disrespected by someone else. Oh, how many times have you heard that? Maybe all they are asking for is to be shown a little courtesy. That's what we're talking about today. Has our frenetic, self absorbed society given up entirely on kindness, respect, and consideration of others? And Chrys, I don't think that we have as a nation at large. We just need to be reminded.
Right. I think so too. And the next quote says, sometimes life gets in the way and we're just too busy or exhausted to remind little Johnny or little Susie to chew his hamburger and with his mouth closed and, things like that. So I think that is true. Sometimes we just get too busy and we have to remind ourselves that this is an important task for us to do. And
Yeah.
that's teaching manners to our children and our grandchildren.
Which is something
Several
else
years
you and I
ago.
heard growing up,
Oh,
Chris, was to tend to the little things and the big
yes.
things will tend to themselves.
Mhm.
Yeah. But
Exactly.
anyway, you said several years
Well,
ago.
several years ago, the kids the grandkids were all coming over to eat, and Bella was probably 7 or 8, and she had brought a friend that day. And I was just huge on my kids learning table manners and then huge with the grandkids. I really believe, grandmas out there, we have a responsibility to help our moms and dads who are super busy. We're just that next layer of defense. We're the second layer of the coaches out there helping them. So I always insisted when the kids sit down for dinner at my house to put their napkins in their lap, those kinds of things. Wait till everybody's through eating to get up, chew with the, all those things.
Ask to be excused.
Ask to be excused. Yeah. Thank the person who did the cooking. All of those things I insisted on. So this particular day, we all sat down around our big round table, and Bella had a friend with her. And I start off the meal by saying, everybody put your napkins in your lap. And Bella looked over just like deadpan face to her little guest and say, when you eat at Two Mama's house, you get dinner, but you also have to get manners lessons. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly right.
And again, that's because
she knew.
There used to be classes that taught the type of things that we're talking about. And I kind of, I'm nostalgic for those days.
Right.
We need to be bringing these things back. And Bella had realized early on that manners was going to be expected at your house. And it was a part of what was going to happen. So,
well, and
Bella.
The funny joke is that I used to tell my own kids, personally, I would say, in teaching manners, I would say, hey, you never know. You may have to eat at the White House one day. And that was just like a huge joke. And then my daughter, Corey Robertson, and her husband, Willie, who were on Duck Dynasty, actually were invited to a White House dinner. And I was like, see, there, I told you. I knew it. It could happen. You never know. Of course, I never in my wildest dreams thought it could ever happen. But you don't know who you're raising. You don't know what situation they are going to find themselves in. So you're giving them a gift when you're giving them lessons on manners and, like we said a few weeks ago, life skills. So anyway.
And one of those that you taught and I taught at the table growing up, and think about this in light of that state dinner. We taught our children to close your mouth while you're at the table eating. Right. When you close your mouth while you have food in it. Well, it seems like a small thing, but think about Corey at the White House, talking to someone with food in their mouth. I used to always tell my children that when that happens, it's because you can't wait long enough to speak. And that's always supposed to be a clue. We talked about this in a previous podcast, that if you're just waiting on someone else to, stop talking so that you can start talking, you remember when we said, well, you're not listening then to that person? It really applies to this idea of talking with food in your mouth. And I'm going to I didn't know I was going to do this, Chris. I'm going to kind of call out people our age for just a moment.
Okay.
This is what I have seen in the past years. People our age who taught kids and grandkids not to talk with food in their mouths for some reason. Have you seen it? You're
I've seen it.
As they age, they give themselves permission to talk with food in their mouths. It is a pet peeve of mine, so I didn't know I was going to bring it up, but I'm just going to say stop it.
Right.
That Bob Newhart show. Stop it.
I am so with you because this is funny. Johnny's dad, precious, bless his heart and life that he lived, but I used to joke in his later years, he would wait till he put food in his mouth to start talking. I'm like, no, you're supposed to talk.
I have seen it over and over with older people, mature people that didn't do it early on. And so I guess I just want to toss it out there as a reminder to all of us to be cognizant of that.
Yes.
And to remember that we want to close our mouth when we're chewing. It seems so simple, but apparently it's a skill that we can forget.
Exactly. Well, speaking of that, I found some different things hints that other people have said that they did to help their kids with the manners that we think are so important. One of them was the, chewing with your mouth closed. And so this particular lady said to remind her kids to chew with their mouths closed. Her husband and she created this dinner table Olympics. So they would score and tabulate events such as food chewing and talking with an empty mouth. And after several days of these events, they gave out ribbons and congratulations. And again, it's kind of back to that game, Mother May I. I love that we're going to tell you a couple of other hints that parents, smart, bright parents, have come up with ways to teach their children these really important things. And if it means playing a game, do it.
Then play the game.
Play
And
the game.
I think we should give this lady credit. That was a Valerie Schneck. I think
Yeah.
that's how we would say that, Schenk. And I love her dinner table Olympics idea. So way to go, Valerie.
Yeah, I love it.
What's the next one, Chrys?
Well, one thing that I think bothers parents so much, maybe not the parent, it's everybody else watching that child, is when a child interrupts. And today, we're really bad about it. Moms, we got to stop that. We've got to teach our kids that they cannot interrupt when adults are talking. Kids have begun to think in the last 25 years, 30 years, that they are the center of this universe. And while we love our kids and they light up our lives, we have got to teach them that they need to step back when adults are talking and not interrupt. And this lady, she just did a great job. She said, when my children want to talk with me while I'm speaking with someone else or busy doing something else, I've taught them to put their hand on my arm and quietly wait. See, that's another key thing we've got to teach our children, how to wait. Doing this teaches my little ones not to interrupt, but it also shows them that I am genuinely interested in what they have to say and want, but I need them to wait a minute till I can listen to them. I love that. Her name is Evie Lynn Palmer.
Way to go, Evie Lynn. You know, we
Yes.
addressed a little bit in a recent podcast this idea of teaching our
Right.
kids to wait, but I like that she underscores something that we said then, how important it is to make eye contact with them, even if you don't have that particular rule, they don't put their hand on your arm. But if you make eye contact with them to let them know that you heard them, then they can wait easier. And so it's worse. I've seen the parenting that just tries to ignore them wrong because they just keep getting louder and louder and louder and no one's learning anything. So you want to make eye contact with them and let them know that they're going to have a turn, but not to interrupt.
Right.
And then this next one is a crucial manner that, again, we're talking about teaching our kids and grandkids manners, but Chrys, this is another one that I'm going to call out adults on
Yeah.
in our own generation. We have lost the important courtesy of remembering people's personal space and how that applies in situations like a room that has a closed door and you come up to it, you knock, whether or not that's someone's office door, that's your siblings knocking on each other's door. You know, you don't allow one child to just fly into the other one's room if the door is closed. They give them the common courtesy of knocking first before
Right.
they enter that room.
I love that. This next one, and I saw this modeled. I did this with my own children. I had 2 girls and a boy, and wasn't quite as needed as my friend who had 4 boys. And every single time they went into a store, she or her husband would say, hands in your pockets. That's all that they had to say to their boys, and they would put their hands in their pockets when they walked through the store. And the boys were so respectful and so obedient. And I mean, every place we went, they were complimented on the behavior of their kids. And it was just a simple command that they taught them at a very young age that they followed through on, that I promise now as they are college-age kids and young adults and just the nicest young men. But I just think that one little thing helped shape them, because what that says in one thing, put your hands in your pocket, it says things around you are delicate. Other things are to be respected. You don't run through the store like a crazy person. It says all those things without saying all those things, but it just teaches you to stay calm.
And the underlying quality that we're talking about is the principle of respect. And this
Right.
is the basis of all good manners. It's just to respect each other and to respect people's personal space, respect their time. If you're not showing up late, you're respecting their time. All these different things boils down to respect. So
Right.
we have talked about a lot of manners today, and a lot of them that Chrys and I want to be aware of, and we want to make sure that we're practicing. And we thank you for being a part of this discussion, Chrys.
Absolutely. I think one thing to end on is something that you can always do with your kids and grandkids is role model. You know, when you're about to come up to something that they maybe haven't done before, maybe it's a funeral, to just sit down with them and just talk through what they're about to encounter.
Let them know what to expect.
And let them know what to expect,
That's
and
good.
maybe give them a response that they can say to people. And that goes a long way in modeling. Well, that's our show for the day. We hope you enjoyed it. We can't wait to be with you next time. Have a great week.